Hi, this is Elisa with 60 Days to 60, where I share 60 things that I've learned in my almost 60 years. So I'm talking about different laws, and I'm jumping ahead to the vacuum law of prosperity, which is basically that nature abhors a vacuum. So if you really want something, you have to create a vacuum. You have to create a hole. And then you have to be really intentional with how you fill that hole because it'll, for example, if you say, okay, I'm going to get rid of all the unhealthy foods in my house, and but you're not really good about replacing them with good foods that you'll eat. So maybe you get all these healthy foods that you hate and you'll never eat them. You're going to go back to the store and you're going to replace it with the junk food that you had thrown away. It doesn't really, so you need to be really intentional. And the example I'm going to use, which is why I moved over here, you can see that grand piano in the background. That's why I'm sitting here, because that is my story. So like I said, I learned in the last video, I learned these laws around the time shortly before my mom died. And around that time, we also moved from Arizona back to Texas. So I was living in Arizona when I learned all these laws. And we had this old beat up piano. It was the only thing we could afford when we first got married. But it was out of tune. It was hard to play. And I said, I am not moving that. I'm creating a vacuum. So we moved into our new house, and we had this little bay window, perfect for a grand piano. And so I said, that's where I'm going to put it. Well, the mistake I made, so learn from my mistake, is I put two chairs there because I didn't want it to be just like an empty space. And I moved those chairs to put up the Christmas tree because that was also the perfect spot for our Christmas tree. And when I was taking down the Christmas tree, I was getting ready to move the chairs back, and I'm like, wait, it's not really a vacuum if I'm putting the chairs there. I'm filling it with something I don't want. And so I moved the chairs back and I just left that space empty. And every time I walked by, I would just stop and I would just picture my grand piano and I would be so happy. I would just let myself just feel the joy as if the grand piano was there. And then I would go on with my day. And I just did that. I don't even know how many times I did that. So that was like the end of December, beginning of January. I never take my tree down in December. Who are we kidding? It was probably the middle of January when I finally took my tree down. And then I was like, so that was January of 2007. So remember in the last video, I mentioned my mom passed away in March of 2007. So when I came back from saying goodbye to my mom, piano was a big part of mine and my mom's relationship. My mom was a really good pianist. I followed in her footsteps. And I came home and I didn't have a piano to play. And that was kind of how I was finding a lot of peace. Like when I was visiting my mom, I would just play her piano. And it brought me a lot of peace and a lot of connection to my mom. And so that amped up the emotion behind this piano. All of a sudden I was like, I have to have this piano. And at the time we did this, like honestly, I didn't know how I was going to pay for a grand piano. I'm like, maybe someone will give it to me. I don't know where this grand piano is coming from. Long story short, because we moved, there was basically an extra unexpected bonus that came through from his company at this precise time that was the amount we needed to buy that grand piano. And we ordered it, and they said it would take up to 6 weeks. And I'm like, I really need it in the next 2 weeks because I'm really missing my mom and I really need this connection. And it came in 2 weeks. And all of a sudden there was my grand piano, and I've had it for these past 20 years, almost 20 years, 19 years. But that's how the vacuum law of prosperity works. So you create the vacuum, but then you very intentionally fill it. And then if you can put so much emotion and gratitude and feeling into it, you can actually expedite what you want to get to. So if you've ever had any experience like that, would you share it below? I would love to hear your experiences. And sorry, this is a little shaky. I'm not sitting in the best spot, but really wanted you to see the visual. So have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.